Good evening, everyone. My name is Rebecca Asmo, and I am the Executive Director of Ohio Humanities. Ohio Humanities is the state-based partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities, and our mission is to share stories that spark conversation and inspire ideas, which is perfect for tonight. And we accomplish this mission by providing grants and implementing programs that foster the humanities in public life in Ohio. So as I was getting ready to come here tonight and just say a few words, I kept coming back to something that I recently read. And so tonight I'm going to share two passages with you from a book called Ordinary Notes by Professor Christina Sharp. And Professor Sharp has written a lot, but another book that she wrote is called In the Wake on Blackness and Being. And when I was reading her words, I thought that they really were just perfect for what is happening here tonight. So from Ordinary Notes. There is no short or easy answer to the question, who gets to tell the story of the African diaspora? Likewise, there is no short or easy way to assuage the anxieties about telling a story right. Any attempt to address either must attend to power. I'm not arguing that there are wrong stories or wrong ways to tell them. Stories in and of themselves aren't right or wrong. Who writes, how one writes, as in form, what subject, position, and what one writes matters. It matters because while films, novels, plays, and poems are all work arises out of a particular spaces, places, needs, and times, all works are produced and received within a context. All works are political. The how, who, when, and why of what stories are published and become bestsellers, and what films are made and circulated and go on to win prizes matters because they are really dependent on power. Certainly, the power of publishing, financing, and distribution, but also, of course, representational power, the power of stories to shape realities, to shape how we see each other and ourselves. So today, we are celebrating and supporting an effort to resurrect and revive operas by Black composers that have been lost to history. There are too many stories like this in America, and certainly right here in Ohio. Ohio Humanities is proud to support I Too Sing America and looks forward to continued work together with Opera Project Columbus to revive these works. This project is of global importance. I know all of you are supporters of this work, and I hope that after viewing this today, you will be inspired to give and to do more. But most importantly, I hope you will share this story with others so that they can join this effort and ensure that these works are never lost to history again because of systems of power that have prevented Black artists and art from realizing their fullest potential. So I'm going to leave you with one final remark, again from Professor Sharp. So much of Black life and work and resistance goes missing. Black people work to hold all of this information in our heads, oftentimes unbolstered by institutions, oftentimes against such institutions' purposeful forgetting. We have to function as a living library, as an institution. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dia Foley, Investment Director for the Ohio Arts Council. The Ohio Arts Council's mission is to fund and support quality arts experiences that strengthen Ohio communities culturally, educationally, and economically. We congratulate Opera Project Columbus and today's performers filming their final episode of I Too Sing America. This has been a transformative project. It has been instrumental in resurrecting the operatic works of Black composers. Our agency has funded this project for 2 years through our Arts Innovation program, and indeed, we do think it is truly an innovative production. Thanks to Opera Project Columbus and participating artists, the works of these composers can now be heard and enjoyed anew by today's audiences. Through our grants and programs, the OAC is proud to play a role to help lift the voices of those that have been historically overlooked and under-supported. We celebrate and appreciate Ohio's great diversity and the importance of an inclusive society as we seek opportunity and access to the arts for all. Thank you, and please enjoy I, Too, Sing America.
Hello, I'm Toni Shorter-Smith, and welcome. Welcome to I Too Sing America Parts 4 and 5. Our I Too Sing America series is retrieving great opera compositions written by Black composers that were forgotten due to the shameful history of racism in the opera world. Our goal is to get this beautiful music out in the public domain once and for all and normalize it as part of our history as human beings. The title of our conversation is From Slave Songs, Scat and Symphonies, The Sustaining Power of Black Music. And so I want to introduce, you have the biographies of the panelists that are here, but I just want to highlight a couple of things from each of them. So first, let's see, Ed Bach. Ed Bach is an OSU associated, part of the associated faculty, vocal coach, and pianist. He enjoys an active career as a vocal coach and a collaborative pianist. The international press has hailed him as a pianist who knows how to combine fury and restraint, elegance and lyrical effusion, and praised him for playing a fire, excitement, and a real sense of grandeur, as well as being a collaborator of great sensitivity and refinement. And if you've seen our videos, you know that that is true. Bach has performed in such venues as the festival, I don't know how to pronounce this, La Naudière, Severance Hall, the Phillips Collection, Colerac Hall, the Monnier, is that it? And the National Recital Hall of Taipei. Ed Bach.
Hello.
Dionne Parker Bennett is a soprano and professor of vocal music at Ohio Christian College or University? University. Dionne Parker Bennett's voice has been described as rich, fluid, silvery, and powerful. Her interpretive qualities and stage presence consistently enchants audiences. Bennett served as the artistic director of Opera Project Columbus and is currently on the faculty of Ohio Christian University. She earned a Doctor of Musical Arts degree from the University of Illinois and her Bachelor and Master of Music degrees from the University of Akron. And Dionne is really probably the reason that we're doing any of this series now, as it was her idea to go back and retrieve this wonderful music. So Dionne Bennett. Leslie Savoy Burrs is a composer of the opera Vanqui. Leslie Burrs worked as an award-winning composer, flutist, and educator, spans the spectrum of jazz to opera, chamber music to orchestra, solo voice to chorus, collaborating with internationally prominent artists and professionals in the diverse fields of literature, music, visual arts, medicine, and psychology. Mr. Burrs is the recipient of the National Opera Association's Legacy Award for composing the opera Vanqui, originally commissioned and premiered by Opera Columbus. And you will get to hear some of that music later this evening. Leslie Savoy Burrs. And let's see. William Ted McDaniel, OSU Jazz Professor Emeritus, and all-around cool dude. Dr. Ted McDaniel, professor of African American music at The Ohio State University since 1981, is a specialist in jazz history, jazz performance, and African American music. He retired from OSU after teaching there for 35 years on June 1st, 2015. His scholarly and creative writings were mostly on aspects of jazz and Black music, and he was invited to lecture extensively throughout the United States and to present in Africa, Europe, and China. Professor Ted McDaniel. So now we're just going to have a conversation, and I wanted to first get all of the panelists' reaction to the title, From Slave Songs, Scat and Symphonies, The Sustaining Power of Black Music. So any one of you can begin.
There is a thing about music that unites people, all people, a universal experience. It speaks soul to soul. And there have been times where, as a coach, I've worked with some blonde soprano who wants to sing some spirituals on her recital, and she said, "Is it okay for me to sing a spiritual?" I'm like, "Yes, it is. This is universal music that goes from one heart to another. You sing Rachmaninoff, and you're not Russian, so yes, you can. And don't sing "Let My People Go," but you can. There are many spirituals that are not exactly that type. So I think this is a sustaining power. This is the reason why this music has lived and continues to live and will continue to be written. It speaks to every heart.
I'll add to it that I had the great opportunity to drive a very important African-American composer and choral director by the name of William L. Dawson. And I as a younger man, didn't know the meaning of entrepreneurial, but I attempted to be one. And I started an organization called Creative Artists Workshop. And so by doing Creative Artists Workshop, one of our primary goals was to have Mr. Dawson come and do a series of his concert of his works. And we decided to approach the Mendelssohn Club to sing the works. And because we were inspired by Mr. Dawson, he said, it doesn't matter what the race is singing this music. And he took it to heart that the concept of the word spirituals, he's accepting of that, but he felt more strongly that it was, he was not afraid to use the word Negro because of his age and time. And there's nothing really derogatory. We can make discussions and arguments about it, but some of the finest people came from the Negro period, right? And so he was saying that these, what's called spirituals, a lot of times are actually Negro folk songs. And because he's saying that the spirituals will have a religious connotation, but they went beyond that. And that's another sustaining component to allowing a race to create, grab hold of, and project who they are as a people through their music, and then others adopting it. And we can take that to anything. I love to talk about the idea of K-pop, when K-pop actually is the next variation and inspired by Boyz II Men, right? All right, so anyway, I just wanted to say that this was a perfect example, because when we asked Mr. he said that will not be a problem at all, because this music is meant to be sung by everyone. But I think his primary point was to have its historical understanding and its social position for society everywhere, from Europe to here, for what we as a people have not only brought, but I don't know, have contributed in a way that everyone embraces it, you know? So, and it's a matter then of conveying the concepts of the language of these folk songs, through his Negro folk songs, through his arrangements and his appreciation for what it is that they represent as a race and over an extensive period of time. So, and lastly, I'll just say, we were brought here to endure all the indignities that no one should ever endure. And in that process, we have created culture that has sustained sometimes better for everyone except ourselves. I just watched the documentary on Little Richard and how much they influenced Little Richard, the cat from Rolling Stones. Mick Jagger. He's just fawning over it, and when you watch Paul McCartney do that woo thing, he got that directly. He was just in awe because they opened for, I just saw this on a documentary, so I don't want to sound like I actually know something, okay? So, but what I'm trying to say is, and Pat Boone, Elvis, all of them, they became more of a sustaining thing, right? Because they reaped so much benefit from a direct lifting, or in these days, appropriation, from what are the sustainers. How's that sound? You know what I'm saying? So, all right, that's my part.
No, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, let me hop in on this. First of all, the landscape of Black music is so expansive, it's profound. Despite the oppression, the repression, the appropriation, everything pretty much sonically and musically that has come from the Africans who were brought here in bondage, we all know that story, efforts to deny humanity, to kill us off, none of that worked. And the irony of all of that is no matter what we create and what we have produced, everybody seems at some point in history to want it, to want to remake it, to want to let it get inside of them, to even change the identity of it. That's how powerful it is. There's a book by Sam Floyd, who just died just a few years ago, called The Power of Black Music, and I would recommend strongly. If you've not read that, you should. But this is really what I'm talking about, the power of the production, the power of the creativity, the power of the messaging that comes from our music. That is what separates what we do from everybody else. Everybody has a message. Everybody communicates in a way, but there is something about the Black music tradition. It doesn't matter where you go in the world today. I was recently in China just a few years ago. You should hear some Chinese hip hop. I was in South Africa. You should hear the hip hop of South Africa. You go to Europe, you're going to hear Black music. You go to Asia, you're going to hear Black music. You're going to go to South America. And the idea that the flow is from Africa to this continent is becoming historical. Much of the flow of the 20th century has been from these United States as the point of the diaspora, as the center, going out elsewhere all over the world. So talking about sustaining, everything is in it. We use it to think about, to strategize, to provide hope, to provide faith, to enjoy, to chill, to dance, to make us feel good. All of that, that's a part of the DNA of this tradition called Black music. And I think that sustains us. People wouldn't love it if it didn't provide some sense of nourishment, something that warms the soul.
Because it's real. It's coming from a deep experience where someone responds by telling the truth. And that is a truth that we all share. A happy truth, a sad truth. But yeah, I'm right with you.
Go ahead.
No. I'll just get my little 2 cents. I'm talking about the spirituals and where they come from, that deep place. I know even in my teaching, see, because we have this music, everybody gets something out of it, everyone. And so even with my students, if I have a student that comes in that's having a bad day or having, they're sad or whatever, I take them to a spiritual because then they can just open their whole body. It's something about them. I wrote in with my dissertation, I wrote about the common threads between the folk songs of the Holocaust and the African American spirituals of slavery. There is a sound that is universal, that's pain. There's a sound that's universal, that is hope. There's a sound, and so that was, that speaks to that sustainability, and everybody gets blessed by it, everyone. So,
my concern is in the what Ed was saying. He's bringing up a good point about the essence of truth, right? Because that's something we have to always be conscious of. And where are we at this very moment in time is the suppression and the ignoring of truth to the point that they're going to tell us that books cannot exist. You can go to certain states and we don't exist as a people. And they're saying everything. And so it is our responsibility, as the lady was saying earlier, through the art to make sure that voices shouldn't just be heard, they should be fully embraced and acknowledged. And the worth. And my concern is always, how can a group of people make a decision for us as Black people that we're getting too, we're feeling too much pain and guilt for doing what our people have done in the past. And so the guilt becomes the non-truth, right? And so in the process of the non-truth, what they're saying is, so our option here is, one is we're feeling guilty because there was a truth that took place, and the kids have made a decision, if I just say, oh man, this is hurting me, I don't have to ever study this in life, I don't have to do the homework or anything, and then the parents can say, in essence, as time goes on, this never took place. But what's being completely ignored, and I get astounded by it, is that the idea that there is privilege enough for one group of dominating people to state that we must ban the books, ban the truth, ban the history, ban the people because we're feeling guilty, and they're ignoring the obvious, is that what about the people you are talking about that have lived a most denigrating, most difficult, most killing kind of being a source of killing and joy for killing, i.e. lynching and all. And that we're supposed to just endure to satisfy those that have. And the guilt is not solely just because they feel badly, because number one is, why do you feel badly if you didn't do anything? And are you saying that there's guilt because you are accepting that you are of that same mindset today, as opposed to you are of a new mindset, a actual truth, and that you have no desire to be inhumane to other human beings? Or are you saying it is acceptable for that, but it's not acceptable for you to want to feel badly about how this knee is on your neck? Do you understand? So.
And all the while, they're still benefiting from our music.
Wop, bop, a loom, bop. So that's all I got to say. So.
Well, I think about the truth of the music and how it's universal, and it reminded me, I have a cousin who at 8 years old was singing at the family reunion, "Nobody knows the trouble I've seen." So at 8 years old, there was something she was, experiencing that made her feel like, I'm just going through something, and that song,
Did she surprise you with her low notes?
So, who are some of the artists, the names that have been forgotten that we need to know as we start to explore and bring forward this music?
Just before we started, we're talking about Ruby Elzy. Ruby Elzy was a very significant singer who was educated here at The Ohio State University. George Gershwin picked her to be the very first Bess in Porgy and Bess. And she was about to become the first black woman to perform a leading role at the Metropolitan Opera as Aida. Unfortunately, she became ill and died before that happened. Now, this was in the 30s. And later on, we know Marian Anderson and the tremendous artist she was, and Leontine Price, who had such a spectacular singing voice and artistry, and she took her rightful place and the queen of Verdi. But Ruby Elzy was poised to do it a couple decades before. So she's an artist we've forgotten. David Weaver has written a wonderful book about her, and if you want to have a look into her life, that's a great place to start.
Well, the list is so long. We should never forget our past. And that means that we have a responsibility, particularly those of us who are engaged in the educational enterprise. We have to do the research, we have to unearth, we have to counter this craziness in the curriculum that's going on in Florida and that they're talking about right here in the state of Ohio, telling us what to teach and how to teach it. There's so much in the study of music that needs to be known. People don't know Duke Ellington is the most prolific composer that we know of to come from American soil. We don't know that. We know much more about European masters than we know about our own. We don't know in this city how important Rahsaan Roland Kirk is, and he was born just a few blocks from here. Or Harry Sweets Edison, or that at one time Nancy Wilson was one of the leading jazz vocalists on the planet. We could just go on and on about people who have been forgotten or people who have been marginalized because we have to depend on the media to inform us, via newspapers, radio, TV, and so on. And so much of Black history has been ignored. Ralph Ellison wrote Invisible Man for a reason, and he titled it for a particular reason. So it's our job to be corrective. We have to be problem solvers and never give up. Never, never, never fight. So much of our music is about protest and resistance for a particular reason, because that has been our life experience, and we must never tire of doing that. Keep that going.
I know when we were doing Arias in Ebony with Opera Project Columbus, we found the works of William Grant Still. Didn't even know that he did opera. We knew of his movie music and things like that, but he did all kinds of opera, and it's some of the most beautiful things. I picked one for myself so I could sing it because it was incredible. So there are an H. Lawrence Freeman, he wrote Voodoo. He had an opera company that, and back in 1928, that's when it was performed. I learned of it from the African American Art Song Alliance, and I was given Voodoo, the Voodoo Queen, to sing. And that was what I brought to Opera Project Columbus, because it was amazing. It was an amazing piece. And I never knew that he had his own opera company. His wife was one of the lead singers, and they would do full-out operas, all black. And it hadn't been done for 70 years. Now it's coming back around. Now you're hearing more people pull out pieces from it, arias from it. So these are artists that, we kind of overlook.
I'm very grateful to the Opera Project Columbus to have the venue to let this stuff be heard, to bring it out. And I'm just pleased to be here and share this. Thank you.
Are there others that we should know of that?
Well, my immediate reaction is just the concept of jazz in general, because I marvel when I go online to read news and then they'll have the music section. Jazz you would think doesn't exist, and so I'm thinking of all the artists that have dedicated their lives to jazz in general, and do not have the same kind of recognition that so many. And I think it's every other week that jazz is dead. I'm not sure. So, and in that process, people, the way that they don't want to acknowledge it, and it's a mystery to me because there are so many great players. And that's not to say that they don't get recognition on one level or another, but not on equal footing with. I can watch there's a Sunday morning program and they bring the same guitarist and drum set player, and they've got you could just put any different. You put a different face to it every week because that's what they do, but it's the same tune or the same concept. Whereas jazz artists are trying to make a statement that represents the moment, represents the past, encapsulates so many different things. But sometimes we'll go back to the concept that it might be too much truth in that regard, So.
Well, that actually leads me to my last question, which is, we're in the midst of celebrating 50 years of hip hop. And so I wonder if this music, or the question could be raised, is this music, slave songs, scat, symphonies, is it still valuable? Do people still relate to this music, or is it still significant?
Oh, it's even more significant now than ever before, and we really should not run away from hip-hop nor be in fear of it. Don't forget that hip-hop came about, again, out of a deep consciousness within the youth culture, and everything comes from the youth. I mean, you go back to the civil rights movement that those of us over 50 and 60 and 70 know all about, because we grew up as participants and witness to it, but the young people demonstrated and went to jail for the most part. College students, when I was a student at Morehouse College, the students from Morris Brown, Clark, Atlanta University, Spelman, those were the students in Atlanta who were jailed and were students. It's always been a youth movement because the adults can't risk. They would lose their jobs. They can't take time away to do what youth, because of the craziness and the chance taking and the risk taking that youth will do. So you have to depend on youth. What the youth started to do was to pull the covers off of everything and expose. That's what hip hop. We can go back to the blues, we can go back to spirituals, and we can hear all the double entendre and metaphors and camouflage and code and symbolism, and look at the blues and see all of how we use language in a very strategic way to say one thing and to mean something else. And by the time you get into the 70s with you people, they said, the heck with this. They pulled the covers off, so they said whatever they wanted to say to you directly. And there was a reason for it, because that time had come. And what did they talk about? When you really think about what early hip-hop was all about, it was about talking about the poverty, talking about the crime, talking about black people getting shot, talking about drugs coming into the black community. So the people who are overly critical of it fail to even consider the messaging. The irony of all of that is that that's hardly a TV commercial you hear on TV that doesn't have some hip hop in it today. And do you know the biggest consumers of hip hop on the planet, come from the white community? That's just a reality. Because what is hip hop? It's another direct form of messaging. And it's one that has galvanized youth of all colors and races and ethnicities. So it is so powerful. And I know it's frightening to those of you who are in my generation sometimes, but it's everywhere. And you're not going to stamp it out because it's in the movies. It's in acting. It's in the visual arts. It's in theater. It's on Broadway. Isn't it so interesting that the biggest thing that hit Broadway just a few years ago is hip-hop based with Hamilton? My goodness, you have to ask yourself, how did this come about? It's because there's something so powerful about black music that is working. And these kids are doing it their way, and they're not asking our permission to do it. They just do it. And we're going to have to deal with it and have to learn from it, try to get the best practices from it to make certain that it benefits us in ways. And that's what we have to do.
Well, you see, we could do this for another hour, but we're going to have to leave it there. Let's thank our panelists and thank you.